Welcome to the In My Opinion Show with Ronald Ray Robinson and friends, seen on the internet 24 hours, 7 days a week. To view the In My Opinion Show, please go to YouTube and in the search engine, type in capital letters, RBRIMO, to watch the latest in internet television. I want to welcome my talented co-host, Miss Denise Smith-Allen.
Hello, Ronald.
Hi, Denise. Mr. Henry Hatter.
Thank you, Ron.
Welcome all to the In My Opinion Show, as well as our millions of viewers worldwide. Violence is a disease. Violence is a public health disease, and Detroit and Flint is infected. Public health is the science of protecting and improving the health of communities through education, promotion of healthy lifestyles, and research for disease and injury prevention. Professionals consider many elements that make for healthy or unhealthy communities. Personal choice and the environment are two of those elements, factors that lead to the violence threatening too many of our citizens, especially young. In Detroit and Flint, there is an environment of extreme poverty, fear, anger, all fueled by the indifference of city and state officials to the plight of people living in the neighborhoods. Young people in these cities are leaving schools that are marked by state-imposed chaos, lack of resources, the absence of art, music, black history, and African culture. That cultural vacuum created by the current state of inferior schools and miseducation has literally unhinged our youth from their past, from meaningful culture, and from community. The ready access to guns provides quick and fatal recourse for simmering anger over no jobs, no opportunities, no future. Police alone cannot solve the problem. They arrive after the trigger has been pulled. Education is a necessity in fighting violence. It is a key tool that public health professionals use to overcome problems, to prevent problems from happening or reoccurring. Schools, churches, public institutions, and people of goodwill have an obligation to join or create educational programs to counter the thug culture that prevails. A healthy community requires a community effort. It is time for Detroit and Flint churches, institutions, schools, and public officials to devise programs that focus on the growing violence. Reverend David Bullock's Crusade for America is one such program. It is off to a healthy start and an effort that needs our support and participation. Another example is the community effort underway in Chicago to stem the hundreds of murders there. Ceasefire is a public health model administered by the Chicago Project for Violence Prevention at the University of Illinois School of Public Health. As a public health model, Ceasefire defines violence as a disease and examines how, when, and by whom it is spread and how it can be stopped. The nonprofit program attempts to interrupt the cycle of violence, especially gun violence, and to change norms about behavior. The program uses two teams of people to prevent violence. The first group consists of outreach workers who collaborate with the local clergy to oppose violence. The second group is a less conventional one called violence interrupters who operate at night. They are mainly former gang members and graduates of the Ceasefire program. These people search out crime and use a tough, realistic approach to enforcing the law. In their own way, if they come across a man intent on shooting someone, for instance, they will try to physically separate the two parties, even if it means using force, then mediate a solution that is satisfactory to both. According to the U.S. Department of Justice study of Ceasefire in 2008, it is successful. 5 out of 7 areas where Ceasefire program operates in Chicago reported a sharp decrease in gun violence. Shooting and killings dropped 40% in crime hot spots. Retaliatory murders dropped 100%. Baltimore and Cincinnati, Las Vegas, and New York will all soon see the launch of the Ceasefire programs. Flint should look at these models, because we have a horrendous problem here. All right. Because I think that they have some good ideas to stem the violence. Because Flint, Michigan, where we produce this show, is, I think, right on the verge of being America's most violent and murderous city again. Denise, what is your thoughts?
Well, certainly, Ron. I am in agreement that it is a disease, and it has affected Flint primarily because of the lack of resources in this area. We have multiple problems, but the biggest problem, I think, is the failure of many of us to embrace our young people. I mean, we used to have the adage that was spoken about the village being involved and engaged in raising children, but the village right now is on fire. We are in dire straits, and we need to figure out multiple ways to stem the tide. I'm always speaking about where it starts, and it starts at home. I think that caregivers, whether they are the parents, grandparents, or foster parents, other extended family members who are involved with caring for minor children, have to do what they can to discipline their young people and help them to understand that it's important that they respect laws and they respect each other. Teach them love. Teach them the things that are going to help them to survive out here in this world. Then when they get to school, they'll be able to be productive in the school setting, because the schools can't do it by themselves. They expect the children to go to school a lot of times and get this kind of training, but it comes from the home in the beginning, and then it's translated. And if the school system see that there are parents and or guardians, people who are responsible for the minor children, that they're engaged, and they will work more diligently to help those children who are troubled. Then we have the churches and other spiritual institutions. They have to do their due diligence in terms of providing programs, alternatives to activities that these young people may get engaged in, because there's nothing for them to do. So if there are programs in churches, institutions of spirituality, where they can find some solace and some comfort, and also some young people who are like-minded, that would stem the tide of the bullying and all those other things that, ultimately get people involved in criminal activity. So, we know what the problems are. There are solutions, but these solutions are not overnight solutions. These are things that have to take a period of time for people to really wrap their heads around the seriousness of it. I can't imagine at this point there's too many people in Flint that have not been touched by violence. Our own family has lost a grandson to violence. Every family in Flint either has somebody or knows somebody who's been touched by violence. We've got to learn how to stop it, and the only way we can do it is to continue the conversation and start developing the approach that all of us have a responsibility.
Well, what you're saying is all true and factual. But, I have an issue. I've been in and around Flint for the last 20-some years, all right? I was a block club president. I graduated from the Flint Police Citizens Academy, all right? And I've been to numerous conversations on violence, all right, in and out of the church. It seems that it's getting worse, all right? People have to come out of these institutions, all right? Get out into the neighborhoods, all right? Yeah, churches, they help, and and other organizations help. All right, get out amongst your neighbors. All right, instill strength, because in numbers you have strength. All right, I see people all caged in like animals, with bars and stuff all around their houses, and at nighttime they refuse to come out. All right, I mean, this is not a way to live. Okay, get your ass out of them houses, go in groups, police your neighborhoods. All right, yourself, in conjunction with law enforcement. All right, write down. Yeah, it's scary. Okay, but how? Aren't you sick and tired of being sick and tired? All right. I mean, how many times you gonna walk around the house, all right, and look in the refrigerator, see the same shit you seen in there 20 times before in that day, right? Get out the house. Don't let these thugs, all right, be in charge. Don't let these thugs be in charge. If you need some assistance, I have no problems coming out there and getting in the streets with you. All right? None.
Okay.
All right? I don't have a S on my chest or anything like that. All right? I want to live just like anybody else wants to live. Okay? But fear is a disease too. I mean, you got to take due diligence. And I'm not saying going out there, and get stupid. All right? But work with the police department, the fire departments, all right, and the clergy, okay, and get out there. You were going to say something.
Well, I hear your concern, and I think it would be ideal if that were to happen. But a lot of times there are people who are not going to engage in activity, especially late at night, because of the increase in the violence that goes on. But I think that we have to take a look at the so-called thug. And a lot of times what you're finding, if you sit down and have a conversation with them, are those persons who have not had productive or positive social networks. Okay? They have people in their lives who may have taught them inappropriate things. Okay.
Well, you take the tools with you to show them the different, that there's a different way.
But they have to be willing to listen.
Sure.
Okay. They have to.
But we just can't give up on.
Well, no, I'm not saying that. But I mean, but you have to have opportunities in which you can do that. And so, unfortunately, a lot of times you may not be able to have that conversation with them until they're in the county jail. Because at that point, they are a captive audience. And so, therefore, there may have to be men like yourselves to go inside and talk to them. Because we know that there are people who go inside the jails and talk to young people, a lot of times, from the religious community and what have you. But they need to see more than that.
And have follow-up.
But they need to hear more than that.
Sure.
Because what's going on a lot of times is that male role model who's missing in action. And I'm not speaking about the two gentlemen that are sitting here, but I'm speaking about overall. There are young men particularly, because what we're seeing is an erosion of the family. Okay? Because you have mothers incarcerated, you got fathers incarcerated, who's taking care of the minor children. Who's doing that? It could be the grandparents or some other people,
Another sibling.
Yeah, and so then you create this whole next generation of folks because they haven't received the nurturance and the guidance and the things that they need to sustain themselves, and they're bitter and they're angry because the people who helped them get here are not there in their lives. So therefore, you end up with some person who may have some emotional problems, imbalances, taking medication, the whole 9 yards, and they don't have the basic tools that should have been instilled in them. And so now they're teenagers, young adults, and they don't have a whole lot of, say, internal controls, nor do they have the capacity to love. Okay, so without that, you've got a dangerous situation on your hands. And that's what I'm seeing as I watch our community kind of implode, if you will. You've got people who don't have those things that were instilled and, you know, at a young age for us. They're not getting that. You know,
but you know, I think you're born. You know, you're born with common decency. It's your
that's
environment.
learned. That's learned behavior.
Exactly.
That's learned behavior.
That's why I'm saying your environment. You know what I mean? Creates, which is learning. You know, a learning experience. You know, contrary to what people say about the Muslims, Louis Farrakhan, all right, has a great program, and all around the state. I mean, all around the country. You know what I mean, and you know, and overseas, where he sends out his, including himself, they go out into the worst neighborhoods, all right, in the country, in Chicago and in Dallas and New Orleans and Houston and Miami, all right, and they talk to these people, all right, not in a authoritative manner or anything like this, all right? And from all accounts, all right, it seems to work. It seems to be working. You know, they don't go out and judge folk, all right? They just present a different, wholesome way, all right, of doing things. You know, they're realist. You know, they're a realist. They know that, you know, the economy is in shambles, all right? You know, the unemployment rate, you know, for black males is over maybe 30% in some cities. Here in Flint, it's probably closer to 50.
Right.
All right. They understand the dilemma that we're facing. Not just black folks, but white folks and Hispanics and other races. And that would, you know, that could be a model, to at least look at. You know, don't just cast it aside with, oh, Muslim, this, that, whatnot, like some people do. You know what I mean? And, you know, and I subscribe to Final Call. I'm not a Muslim. I don't have anything, I don't have anything against them. But, you know, I've been enlightened in a lot of ways. All right? We can learn from each other.
Absolutely.
All right?
Absolutely. Well, that was one of the reasons why I said churches, but I said other spiritual institutions, because the bottom line is people, if they are struggling, they're trying to meet, you know, their basic needs as far as food and clothing, and then particularly some of the young people who have gotten caught up with the materialism of the world, and they like the bling and they like certain things, they're willing to do just about anything to get it.
Sure.
Okay, and that's unfortunate because they don't know what the consequences are of those actions. You know, carjacking is a life offense. They don't know that. You know, they just want that person's car, you know. So helping people to understand the bigger picture is a reality that, you know, we have to embrace in terms of having conversations with our young people and not be afraid of them.
Exactly.
Okay. And so how do we do that? Okay. There are many avenues to approach this thing. And so but the bottom line is it has to be approached.
Absolutely.
And if you're speaking about what's going on here in Flint, like I say, the experiences that I've had, you see young people riding in a vehicle, 2, 3, 4 deep, hats turned around and all of that. Okay, they should be able to ride anywhere in the country without any problems. However, the reality is there are profiles.
Sure.
Okay? We have outside police agencies and what have you who are now engaged in trying to stem the tide of violence. Their agenda is, we're going to do this by any means necessary. If it means we have to stop and search different people, is it constitutional? Is it? We're concerned about that right now. What we have been mandated to do is to stop the violence, and this is our way of doing it. So if we pull over a young man who's got 3 or 4 other people in the car, the percentage would be that somebody in that vehicle is going to have something, whether it is a warrant, whether it is drugs, whether it is a gun, you see what I'm saying, child support issues, something is going to happen. And that's unfortunate, it's not fair, we can say all of that we want to say, but the truth is, somebody's in trouble. Okay,
but we all know.
So what do we do about that? You've got programs here, you've got programs, but yet we still don't have enough people who have been through those experiences, have come out and done something better with their lives, something different with their lives, and be able to come back and say, there is another way, young man. There's another way, or young woman, because their women are out here doing this much stuff too.
But don't you think, I think the system, you know what I mean, has set up people of color, all right? Now, I'm not trying to play the race game here, all right? But now, we're the last to be hired, and if we do get a job on a downturn, we're the first to get fired. All right. I mean, this happens all across the country. Tens of thousands, probably actually millions. All right, of people have been affected that way. All right, and if you're any kind of a man and a woman, you got children. All right, you're going to take care of your kids. But Mr. Hatter, what's your thoughts?
Race is not part of it. No, this has nothing to do with race. There is an order to society, and we make rules for that. First hired, the last hired, first released. Right? It makes sense. That's the protocol. But I'm surprised that
the last hired, the first released.
Well, yeah, right. But I'm surprised we're talking about this from the perspective that's a scientific proposition. Violence is a health issue. And we haven't had any evidence to show any of this. Well, and I did, as you were reading that, I didn't see where any studies.
If you get shot, your ass is a health disease.
Yeah,
you
but
know what I mean?
I didn't
it becomes a health disease, right?
I didn't see any evidence where someone had gone through and set up a proposition. Health, violence is a health issue. Then you go down, then you establish a hypothesis, and then a test. You go out and ask people, and you check data and stuff like that, and you observe. And you come up with some kind of a plausible conclusion. Otherwise, you're just blowing wind.
But isn't that what we've been doing for the last 20, 30 years? Blowing wind?
But I think public policy, I think there's been public health officials have looked at this.
But not from a controlled study to irrevocably say that this is a disease, which I don't think it is. I think a lot of things that cause violence today has to do with the way the law has released and the parental restraint on their children. I think that that has been part of the problem. I think it's been societal to a sense, and it's been to this uncontrolled willingness of young people to abide by the rules. And that's because they have all of these safety factors from other sources that they don't have to listen to mom and dad. They don't have to listen to people on this TV show. And you know tonight and tomorrow somebody's going to be killed. And next week it's going to be the same way. And we still talk this crap here. But and we accomplish nothing. Denise, I know that you're in law enforcement. And you do this all the time. I don't. So you're closer to the data that makes sense than I am by just procrastinating here, because I don't have anything to work. But I do know that there are laws that have liberated young people, and there are parents who make excuses for why their kids do things and never correct their behavior. There are schools that don't engage at all. And then you expect, when I was a child, I was never afraid to walk down the street. I was never afraid of being gangbanged. And I was always pleased that somebody was watching out for me. That was the village.
Yeah.
Yeah. But now, the village
is on
goes
fire.
in and closed.
The village is on fire.
You put up those iron walls.
That's right.
So, and the churches are ineffective altogether. They are without any effect at all. They are just...
I disagree with that. I disagree with that.
Pimps in the pulpit.
No, I disagree with that. I think that there are programs that parents
It only
utilize.
reaches just a small segment of the kids, and that's the kids within the church.
Right. So maybe that's a segment that
But it
needs.
doesn't cover enough of them.
Well, listen. You know, the
It's a
kids can't get
societal
to
problem.
the kids can't get to the church by themselves. They can't get there unless the parents bring them. Okay. And then there are outreach programs where churches do go out to the community, just as Ron was alluding to, that the Muslim groups have.
I agree. I agree.
They,
You didn't hear them say they came to Flint. They went all around.
Well, they're
yeah.
here too.
Well,
They're here, Flint, too.
they're here.
Yes.
But the point still being, we have, to me, it's a social problem because people don't feel good enough about themselves. They don't feel good about themselves, nor do
Is that
they
a
feel.
health problem?
That's a health problem. It really
It
is. To me, it is. Okay, and they don't feel good enough about their fellow man to believe in the sanctity of life, the sacredness of life. They don't believe in that. And so something is wrong.
Where did our society break down? Because that wasn't always true.
Oh, I know. Well, I think you alluded to it when you talked about the laws and how the
court
laws
system.
changed,
Yeah.
how the laws changed. And a part of it was, to protect children, we understand, from abuses.
I agree.
From
we gotta
abuses.
have that. We gotta have that.
Okay. But now, they have taken it and they've misused that portion and that element of it. And so now parents are afraid to discipline their children, and then the children realize that, so they run amok.
At this time, this has been a wonderful conversation, but we must bring this segment to a close. But at first, I want to thank Mr. Henry Hatter and Mr. Neesmith Allen and our wonderful technical staff. This is Ronald Berry Robinson saying, for the In My Opinion show, stay focused.